Ladha is it's a hard thing to define. In Arabic, ladha means pleasure, and obviously there are a lot of different ways that we could define pleasure and what a pleasurable experience is and what it means to experience pleasure in somebody's voice. Obviously some voices are more pleasurable than others, and some voices actually grate on one's ears. But generally it's really talking about sexual pleasure. It's talking about the experience of arousal and something that incites amorous feelings towards another. Voices can be very seductive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the women not to speak seductively in the Quran, to speak forcibly with men, and to keep their voices at a tone that's appropriate. Whispering is obviously an intimate way to speak, and people whisper when they're being intimate. So that's basically, it's not permissible for you to take any type of taladdud or this pleasurable experience from somebody's voice, whether it's on the telephone, whether it's, and people have to just know themselves. But obviously Islam, one of the 6 universals, or if you want to, dignity is sometimes not included in that, but one of the 6 universals is the protection of family, or nasab. And so Islam, you know, the religion itself has a lot of checks and balances to ensure that protection won't be compromised. And the other is obviously the protection of the religion itself. And certainly there are many hadiths about the dangers of male and female loose mixing and things like that. And adab, decorum, was a very important aspect of Islamic civilization. And in many ways, modern people are they're just very crude in relation to the earlier peoples. And this is one of the areas in how we interact, learning how to interact on the one hand where it's natural, because there's certain types of interaction that actually do the opposite of what's intended. In other words, the artificiality is so predominant in the exchange that it actually focuses on the very thing that it's meant not to bring about. So, and then he also says, just listening to the makhufa, or somebody who the majority of people are not, you know, stunning, or, I mean, stunning faces are out there, but they're few and far between. But there are people that do have those impact on people. And usually the veil was mentioned for women that really do turn heads, so to speak. And so that's what he's really talking about. Very, very beautiful women that have an effect on the hearts of men. And the same is true the other way around as well. So, but men obviously tend to be more attracted to the visual aspect of that. And you know, the Arabs say, وَالْأُذُنُ تَعْشَقُ قَبْلَ الْعَيْنِ أَحْيَانًا, that the ear can have ishq before the eye in some cases. So don't underestimate the power of the human voice. And generally, you know, in pre-Islamic cultures, the mixing was very, very limited, and women did, like women in every civilization, they go about their business. And even the Prophet ﷺ's wives, who were told to stay within their homes, were nonetheless allowed to go out for their needs. In a healthy and spiritual culture, people do not have this need to go outside. The Prophet ﷺ said, نِعْمَ صَوْمَعَةُ الْبَيْتِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. You know, what a blessed monastery is the house of the believer. That if you're spiritually healthy, you don't need all this stimulation. But people that aren't well, that's what they need. They're going out trying to find something out there that's actually to fill a vacuum that's in here. And just like you can eat and get satiated, it's a temporary satiety, and then you're hungry again. Well, that vacuum that's a spiritual vacuum cannot be filled by other than what is permanent, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whenever it tries to be filled with something that's impermanent, it always creates the desire and the yearning. It wants to go back again to, and then the stimulation threshold gets higher and higher. So that's really what he's talking about. Imam Malik radiallahu anhu in the Muwatta, he was asked about greeting even the ajnabi woman, and he said, if it's mutajalla, la akrahu dharik, it doesn't bother me. If she's an older, mature woman, and the mutajalla is a woman who is to put in Jane Austen's terms, is past her bloom. So that's the woman that is, the face has become mature. It's not the young, youthful face that is attractive to men. But Imam Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu said, لِكُلِّ سَاقِطَ لَاقِطَ. That everybody, that again, people are attracted and to different, people have different attractions, so he warned about that. But he said if it was a young woman, he said, لَا أُحِبُّ ذَلِكَ. And this is, again, the early community were very careful about saying this is halal or this is haram, because they didn't want to fall under that prohibition. The Quran, وَلَا تَقُولُوا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبِ. Don't say, and your tongues are lying when they say هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ. Don't do that. And that's why the early community did not do that. They were very, very wary of doing that. And Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah has a wonderful bahath in his book A'lam al-Muwaqqi'in called On the Impermissibility of Calling a Fatwa the Hukm of Allah. In other words, the fatwa is a legal opinion. It's not the Hukm of Allah. You cannot, if it's an ijtihad issue, you cannot say that this is the hukm of Allah. And this is why the ulama differentiated traditionally between fiqh and between sharia. The sharia is Allah's way. The fiqh is the human understanding of the sharia. And so that was an important differentiation that the later ulama compromised on, holding the community together. So that was their ijtihad as well. But that early community, you will see that. They usually say, لَا يَعْجُبُنِي هَذَا أَكْرَهُ ذَلِكَ. They didn't want to say, if they didn't have a nas sarih, a clear injunction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were very, very careful about saying this is halal or this is haram. Imam Malik was also asked about, in the Muwatta, on the section on eating, he was asked about whether or not a man could have his wife sit with his guests. And he said as long as the decorum was observed, as long as there was adab in that majlis, then he didn't see any harm in that. But if men are going to be looking and checking out and doing those things, that's another thing. Most of the later ulama, in fact very early on, started saying fasad al-zaman, like the time is corrupt, meaning there's an omission there, which means the people of the time are corrupt. So fasada ahlu zaman. And because of the corruption of the people, they tended to say, no, you should have complete separation because the hearts aren't the way they were before and things like that. Again, these are ijtihadats. In the West, we're in situations that are very different from these traditional societies, and those are the things that we have to work out as a community about how we can be, again, true to the thawabit, to those things that are fixed and permanent in our religion, and also amenable to the mutaghayyarat, to those things that are temporal and change, the a'raf, the customs, the norms, the cultural aspects of a community. Tfaddal. Oh, and also looking then at the tyrant, with being pleased with a tyrant. So, unfortunately, you will see the amazing obsequiousness around tyrants.